Hello and welcome back. We are on chapter 8 of Marked. This is the first book of the House of Night novel series by PC and Kristen Cast. Chapter 8. The part of the House of Night that held the dorms was way across campus, so we had a fairly long walk, and Nefrit seemed to be walking slowly on purpose, giving me plenty of time to ask questions and gawk. Not that I minded. Walking the length of the sprawling castle-like cluster of buildings, with Nefrit pointing out little details about what gave me a sense of the place. It was weird, but in a good way. Plus, walking felt normal. Actually, as odd as it sounds, I felt like myself again. I wasn't coughing, my body didn't ache, my head even had stopped hurting. I was absolutely, totally not thinking about the disturbing scene I'd accidentally witnessed. I was forgetting it, on purpose. The last thing I needed was to have more to deal with than a new life and a weird mark. So, blowjob? Forgotten. Deeply in denial, I told myself that if I hadn't been walking through a school campus at an ungodly hour of the night beside a vampire, I almost could pretend that I was the same today as I had been yesterday. Almost. Well, okay. Maybe not even almost, but my head did feel better, and I was just about ready to face my roommate when Nefrit finally opened the door to a girl's room. Inside was a surprise. I'm not sure what I expected. Maybe everything to be all black and creepy. But it was nice, decorated in soft blue and antique yellow, with comfy couches and clumps of puffy pillows big enough to sit on, dotting the room like giant pastel M&Ms. The soft gaslight coming from several antique crystal chandeliers made the place look like a princess's castle. On the cream-colored walls there were large oil paintings, all of them of ancient women who looked exotic and powerful. Fresh cut flowers, mostly roses, sat in crystal vases at the end tables that were cluttered with books and purses and fairly normal-looking teenage girl stuff. I saw several flat screen TVs and recognized the sound of MTV's Real World coming from one of them. I took in all of this fast, while I tried to smile and appear friendly to the girls who had shut up the instant I walked into the room, were now staring at me. Well, scratch that. They weren't exactly staring at me. They were staring at the mark on my forehead. Ladies, this is Zoe Redbird. Greet her and welcome her to the House of Night. For a second, I didn't think anyone was going to say anything, and I wanted to die of new kid mortification. Then a girl stood up among the middle of the group and that was clustered around one of the TVs. She was a tiny blonde and darn near perfect. Actually, she reminded me of a young version of Sarah Jessica Parker, who I don't like, by the way. She's just so annoying and unnaturally perky. Hi, Zoe. Welcome to your new home. The SJP lookalike smile was warm and genuine, and she was clearly making an effort to make eye contact instead of gawk at my darkened in mark. Instantly, I felt bad for making a negative comparison about her. I'm Aphrodite, she said. Aphrodite? Okay, maybe I hadn't been too hasty in my comparison. How could anyone normal choose Aphrodite as her name? Please, talk about delusions of grandeur. I plastered a smile on my face, though, and said, Hi, Aphrodite. Nefrit, would you like me to show Zoe to her room? Nefrit hesitated, which felt really odd. Instead of answering right away, she stood there and locked eyes with Aphrodite. Then, just as quickly as the silent stare-down had started, Nefrit's face broke into a wide smile. Thank you, Aphrodite. That would be lovely. I'm Zoe's mentor, but I'm sure she would feel more welcomed if someone her own age showed her the way to her room. Was that anger I saw flash through Aphrodite's eyes? No, I must have imagined it. Or at least I would have believed I'd imagined it if that weird new gut feeling of mine hadn't told me otherwise. And I didn't need my new intuition to clue me in that something was wrong, because Aphrodite laughed, and I recognized the sound of it. Feeling like someone had punched me in the gut, I realized that this girl, Aphrodite, had been the one I just watched with the guy in the hall. Aphrodite's laugh, followed by her perky, Of course, I'd be happy to show her around. You know I'm always glad to help you, Nefrit, was as fake and cold as Pamela Anderson's humongously huge boobs. But Nefrit just nodded in response and then turned to face me. I'll leave you now, Zoe, Nefert said, squeezing my shoulder. Aphrodite will take you to your room, and your new roommate can help you get ready for dinner. I'll see you in the dining room. She smiled her warm mom smile at me, and I had the ridiculously childish urge to hug her and beg her not to leave me alone with Aphrodite. You'll be fine, she said, as if she could read my mind. You'll see, Zoe Bird. All will be well, she whispered, sounding so much like my grandma that I had to blink hard not to cry. Then she nodded a quick goodbye to Aphrodite and the other girls and left the room. The door closed with a muffled, dead sound. Oh, hell. I just wanted to go home. Come on, Zoe. The rooms are this way, Aphrodite said. She motioned for me to come with her up the wide stairs that curved to our right. As we walked upstairs, I tried to ignore the buzz of voices that instantly erupted behind us. Neither of us spoke, and I felt so uncomfortable that I wanted to scream. Had she seen me back there in the hall? Well, I sure as hell wasn't going to mention it. Ever. As far as I was concerned, it never happened. I cleared my throat and said, The dorm seems nice. I mean, it's really pretty. She cut her eyes sideways at me. It's better than nice or really pretty here. It's amazing. Oh, well, that's good to hear. She laughed. The sound was totally unpleasant, almost a sneer, and it crawled up the back of my neck like it had when I had first heard it. It's amazing here mostly because of me. I glanced at her, thinking that she must be kidding, and met her cold blue eyes. Yeah, you heard me right. This place is cool because I'm cool. Oh my God. What a bizarre thing for her to say. I didn't have a clue how to respond to that very stuck-up piece of info. I mean, like I needed the stress of a fight with Miss thinking she's all that, added on top of a life species school change, and I still couldn't tell whether she knew it had been me watching her in the hall. Okay, I just wanted to find a way to fit in. I wanted to be able to call this new school home, so I decided to take the safest road and keep my mouth shut. Neither of us said anything anymore. The stairs led to a large hallway lined with doors. I held my breath when Aphrodite stopped before one that was painted a pretty light purple, but instead of knocking, she turned to face me. Her perfect face suddenly looked hateful and cold and definitely not so pretty. Okay, here's the deal, Zoe. You have this weird mark, so everyone's talking about you and wondering what the fuck is up with you. She rolled her eyes and clutched her pearls dramatically, changing her voice so that it sounded really silly and gushing. Ooh, the new girl's got a colored-in mark. Whatever could that mean? Is she special? Does she have fabulous powers? Oh my! Oh my! She dropped her hand from her throat and narrowed her eyes at me. Her voice went flat and mean as her gaze. Here's what I want. I'm it here. Things go my way. You want to get along here? Then you best remember that. If you don't, you'll be in for a world of shit. Okay, she was starting to piss me off. Look, I said, I just got here. I'm not looking for trouble, and I have no control over what people are saying about my mark. Her eyes narrowed. Ah, crap. Was I going to have to actually fight this girl? I'd never been in a fight in my life. My stomach knotted, and I got ready to duck or run or whatever would not get me beat up. Then, just as quickly as she'd gone all scary and hateful, her face relaxed into a smile, and she turned back into sweet little blonde again. Not that I was fooled. Good, so we understand each other. Huh? I understood she'd forgotten to take her meds, but that was all I understood. Aphrodite didn't give me time to say anything. With one last, weirdly warm smile, she knocked on the door. Come on in, said a perky voice with an oaky accent. Aphrodite opened the door. Hi, y'all. Oh my gosh. Come on in. With a huge grin, my new roomie, also a blonde, rushed up like a little countrified tornado. But the instant she saw Aphrodite, her grin slid from her face and she stopped, hurrying towards us. I brought your new roommate to you. There was nothing technically wrong with Aphrodite's words, but her tone was hateful and she was putting on a terrible fake Oklahoma accent. Stevie Ray Johnson. This is Zoe Redbird. Zoe Redbird, this is Stevie Ray Johnson. There. Now, ain't we all nice and cozy, like 3 little corns on a cob? I glanced at Stevie Ray. She looked like a terrified little rabbit. Thanks for showing me up here, Aphrodite. I talked quickly. moving towards Aphrodite, who automatically stepped back, which put her out into the hall again. "See you around." I closed the door on her as her look of surprise was just beginning to change to anger. Then I turned to Stevie Ray, who was still pale. "What's with her?" I asked. She's Even though I didn't know her at all, I could tell that Stevie Ray was struggling with how much she should or shouldn't say, so I decided to help her. I mean, we were going to be roommates. "She's a bitch," I said. Stevie Ray's eyes went round, and then she giggled. "She's not very nice, that's for sure. She needs pharmaceutical help, that's for sure," I added, making her laugh some more. "I think we're going to get along just fine, Zoe Redbird," she said, still smiling. "Welcome to your new home." She stepped aside and made a sweeping arm gesture to the little room, like she was ushering me into a palace. I looked around and blinked several times. The first thing I saw was a life-size Kenny Chesney poster that hung over one of the two beds, and the cowgirl hat that rested on one of the bedside tables, the one that also had the old-fashioned looking gas lamp with the base stamped like a cowboy boot. Oh, nuh-uh. Stevie Ray was a total okie. Then she shocked me with a big hello hug, reminding me of a cute puppy with her short, curly hair and her smiling round face. "Zoe, I'm so glad you're feeling better. I was so worried when I heard you hurt yourself. I'm really glad you're finally here." "Thanks," I said, still staring around what was now my room, too, feeling totally overwhelmed and weirdly on the edge of tears again. "It's kind of scary, isn't it?" Stevie Ray was watching me with big, serious blue eyes that were filled in with sympathetic tears. I nodded, not trusting my voice. "I know. I cried the whole first night." I swallowed back my own tears and asked, "How long have you been here?" "3 months, and man, I was glad when they told me I was getting a roommate." "You knew I was coming?" She nodded vigorously. "Oh, yeah. Nefer told me the day before yesterday that the tracker had sensed you and was going to mark you. I thought you'd be here yesterday, but then I heard that you'd had an accident and had been brought to the clinic. What happened?" I shrugged and said, "I was looking for my grandma, and I fell and hit my head." I wasn't getting the weird feeling that told me I should keep my mouth shut, but I wasn't sure how much I should say to Stevie Ray yet, and I was relieved when she nodded as though she understood and didn't ask any more questions about the accident or mention my weird colored-in mark. "Your parents freaked when you got the mark?" "Totally. Didn't yours?" "Actually, my mama was okay with it. She said anything that got me out of Henrietta was a good thing." "Henrietta, Oklahoma?" I asked, glad to move to a subject that was not all about me. "Sadly, yes." Stevie Ray flopped down on the bed in front of the Kenny Chesney poster that mentioned for me to sit on the one across the room from her. I did, and then I felt a little jolt of surprise when I realized that I was sitting on my cool hot pink and green Ralph Lauren comforter from home. I looked at the little oak end table and blinked. There was my annoying, ugly alarm clock, nerdy glasses for when I'm sick of wearing my contacts, and the picture of my grandma and me from last summer. And in the books behind the computer on my side of the room, I saw my Gossip Girls and Bubbles series books, along with some of my other favorites, including Bram Stoker's Dracula, which was more than a little ironic. Some CDs, my laptop, and oh my dear sweet lord, my Monsters Inc. figurines. How incredibly embarrassing. My backpack was sitting on the floor next to my bed. "Your grandma brought all your stuff up here. She's really nice," Stevie Ray said. "She's more than nice. She's brave as hell to have faced my mom and her stupid husband to get this stuff for me." I can only imagine the overly dramatic scene my mom caused. I sighed, and then I shook my head. "Yeah, I guess I'm lucky. At least my mama was cool about all of this." Stevie Ray pointed to the outline of the crescent moon on her forehead. "Even if my daddy lost every bit of his mind, me being his only baby girl and all." She shrugged and then giggled. "My 3 brothers thought it was awesome and wanted to know if I could help them get vampire chicks." She rolled her eyes. "Stupid boys." "Stupid boys," I echoed and smiled at her. If she thought boys were stupid, then she and I were going to get along just fine. Mostly now I'm okay with all this. I mean, the classes are weird, but I kinda like them, especially the Taekwondo class. I kinda like to kick butt. She grinned mischievously, like the little blonde elf. I like the uniforms, which totally shocked me at first. I mean, would anyone expect to like school uniforms? But we can add stuff to them and make them unique, so they don't look like typical stuck-up, boring school uniforms. And there are some seriously hot guys here, even if boys are stupid. Her eyes sparkled. Mostly, I'm just so darn glad to be out of Henrietta that I don't mind all the other stuff, even if Tulsa is kind of scary because it's so big. Tulsa isn't scary, I said automatically. Unlike too many kids from our suburb of Broken Arrow, I actually knew my way around Tulsa, thanks to what my grandma liked to call field tripping with her. You just have to know where to go. There is a great bead gallery where you can make your own jewelry downtown on Brady Street, and next door to that is the Lola's at the Bowery. She has the best desserts in downtown. Cherry Street is cool too. We're not far from there now. Actually, we're right by the awesome Philbrook Museum and Utica Square. There's some excellent shopping there, and I suddenly realized what I was saying. Did vampire kids get to mingle with regular kids? I searched my memory. No, I'd never seen kids with crescent moon outlines hanging around the Pillbrook or Utica's Gap or Banana Republic or Starbucks. I'd never seen them in the movies. Hell, I'd never seen a vampire kid before today. So would they keep us locked up in here for 4 years? Feeling a little short of breath and claustrophobic, I asked, "Do we ever get out of here?" "Yeah, but there's all sorts of rules you have to follow." "Rules? Like what?" "Well, you can't wear any part of the school uniform." She broke off suddenly. "Shoot, that reminds me. We have to hurry. Dinner's in a few minutes, and you need to change." She jumped up and started to rummage through the closet that was on my side of the room, chattering at me from over her shoulder the whole time. "Nifrit had some school clothes delivered here last night. Don't worry about the sizes not being right. Somehow they always know what size we'll be before they actually see us. It's kind of freaky how the adult vampires know way more than they should. Anyway, don't be scared. I was serious before when I said that the uniforms aren't as awful as you'd think they'd be. You really can add your own stuff to them, like me." I looked at her. I mean, really looked at her. She was wearing a pair of honest to God Roper jeans. You know, the kind those Edge kids wear that were way too tight and have no back pockets. How anyone could think no back pockets and tightness was cute, I'd honestly never understand. Stevie Ray was totally skinny, and the jeans made her butt look wide. I knew before I looked at the girl's feet what she'd be wearing: cowboy boots. I glanced down and sighed. Yup, brown leather, flat heeled, pointy tipped cowboy boots. Tucked into her countrified jeans was a black, long sleeved cotton blouse that had the expensive look of something you'd find at Saks or Neiman Marcus, versus the cheaper see through shirts that overpriced Abercrombie tries to make us believe aren't slutty. When she glanced over at me, I saw that she had double pierced ears with little silver hoops in them. She turned and held out in one hand a black blouse like the one she had on, and a pullover sweater in another, and I decided that even though the country look wasn't for me, she was kind of cute with her mixture of hay, seed, and chic. "Here you go, just throw these on over your jeans and we'll be ready." The flickering light from the cowboy boot lamp caught on a streak of silver embroidery that was on the breast of the sweater she was holding up. I got up and took the two shirts, holding the sweater up so that I could see the front of it better. The silver embroidery was in the shape of a spiral that glittered around and around in a delicate circle that would rest over my heart. "That's our sign," Stevie Ray said. "Our sign?" "Yeah, each class here, they call them third formers, fourth formers, fifth formers, and sixth formers, has their own sign. We're third formers, so our sign is the silver labyrinth of the goddess Nyx." "What does it mean?" I asked, more to myself than to her, as I traced my finger around the silver circles. "It stands for a new beginning as we start our walking the path of night and learn the ways of the goddess and the possibilities of our new life." I looked up at her, surprised that she suddenly sounded so serious. She grinned a little shyly at me and shrugged her shoulders. "It's one of the first things you learn at Vampire Sociology 101. That's the class Nefer teaches. And it sure as hell beats the heck out of the boring classes I was taking at Henrietta High, home of the fighting hens. Ugh, fighting hens. What kind of mascot is that? She shook her head and rolled her eyes while I laughed. Anyway, I heard Netflix your mentor, which is really lucky. She hardly takes on any new kids, and besides, being High Priestess, she's way the coolest teacher here. What did she say? What she didn't say was that I'm not just lucky, I'm special. With my weird colored in mark, which reminded me, Stevie Ray, why haven't you asked me about my mark? I mean, I appreciate you not bombarding me with 100 questions, but all the way up here, everyone who saw me stared at my mark. Aphrodite mentioned it the second we were alone. You haven't even really looked at it. Then she did finally look at my forehead before she shrugged and met my eyes again. You're my roommate. I figured you'd tell me what was up with it when you were ready. One thing growing up in a small town like Henrietta taught me is that it's best to mind your own business if you want someone to stay your friend. Well, we're going to be rooming together for 4 years. She paused, and in the gap between words sat that big, ugly, unsaid truth that we'd be roommates for 4 years if both of us survived the change. Stevie Ray swallowed hard and finished in a rush. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I want us to be friends. I smiled at her. She looked so youthful and hopeful, so nice and normal, and not at all what I imagined a vampire kid would be. I felt a little string of hope. Maybe I could find a way to fit in here. I want to be friends too. Yeah, for that. I swear she looked like a wriggly puppy again. But come on, hurry, we don't want to be late. She gave me a shove towards the door and sat between the two closets before she hurried over to a makeup mirror on her computer desk and started brushing her short hair. I ducked inside to find a tiny bathroom and quickly pulled off my BA Tigers t-shirt and put on the cotton blouse and over it the silk knit sweater that was a deep, pretty shade of purple with little black plaid lines going along through it. I was just getting ready to go back to the room to grab my backpack so I could try to fix my face and hair with the makeup and stuff I brought when I glanced in the mirror over the sink. My face was still white, but it had lost the scary, unhealthy paleness it had earlier. My hair looked insane, all wild and uncombed, and I could faintly see the slim line of dark stitches just above my left temple. But it was the sapphire-colored mark that caught my eyes. While I stared at it, entranced by its exotic beauty, the bathroom light caught the silver labyrinth embroidered over the heart. I decided that the two symbols somehow matched, even though they were different shapes, different colors. Did I match them? And did I match this strange new world? I squeezed my eyes shut tightly and hoped desperately that whatever we were eating for dinner, oh please let there not be any blood drinking involved, wouldn't disagree with my already screwed up nervous stomach. Oh no, I whispered to myself. It would be just my luck to get a raging case of diarrhea. And that is it for chapter 8. We'll see you guys at chapter 9. I hope you enjoyed. Bye.